We are at Chichen Itza in Yucatan, where over 1,500 years ago there lived a race of highly civilized and progressive people known as Mayas. Until recent years, their cities and temples, rivaling those of ancient Egypt and India, were lost in the impenetrable jungle, buried with the secrets of a mighty empire which was dissolved in the 15th century because of tribal wars and pestilence. Scientists are delving into the history of the Mayas by careful study of the ruins that are believed to have been temples, palaces, and tombs of the ancient race. But they can only speculate about the shrines of Yucatan until they learn to interpret fully the hieroglyphic writings on the temple walls. A favorite game of the Mayas was known as poke-to-poke, and it was played in this arena, now referred to as the Great Ball Court, where as many as 5,000 people could assemble. The whole court was so well constructed acoustically that a whisper at one end could be heard at the other. In the middle of each wall is a massive stone ring, through which a solid rubber ball was tossed by the opposing team. A difficult feat when we consider the players had to kick the ball with their feet or butt it with their knees, as they were not permitted to touch it with their hands or arms. Records reveal the sport was always connected with religious ceremonies, and at each end of the court stands a small temple wherein the priests sat and witnessed the games. Adjoining the ball court are the remains of the so-called Temple of the Tigers. Ages of neglect have failed to efface the traces of taste and enlightenment shown in the construction of these deserted palaces by a race civilized and progressive before the dawn of Christianity. At the beginning of the Christian era, it is estimated that the Mayas numbered about 20 million, but who they were and whence they came is still a mystery. At the time of their conquest, the Maya age of literature was just finding expression, and the intellectual status of the people was comparable to that of the Greeks and Egyptians immediately preceding the dawn of history. They were the most advanced of any American peoples, and the only nation on the western continent that had made any considerable headway in the development of a phonetic system of writing. Their hieroglyphics occupy a place along the course of progress, from pictograph to letter, and their monuments and date stones show that they possessed a profound knowledge of the science of mathematics and astronomy. Columns, 1,000 in all, are associated with the Temple of Warriors, where we find some of the most impressive examples of Mayan architecture. Some historians link the Mayas with the survivors of the lost Atlantis, and others see in their descendants, as well as in their early monuments, strong Grecian, Mongolian, and Egyptian characteristics. It is certain that when these mysterious people came to Yucatan, they brought with them the knowledge of a symbolic art, reflecting that which still exists on the banks of the Nile. And their route is marked on the American continent by colossal monuments that even the destructive hand of time has not obliterated. To date, over 60 of their lost and forgotten cities have been rediscovered. Here at Chichen Itza, the ancient capital and most important of them all, we behold transformations from meaningless heaps of ruins into understandable examples of Maya architecture at its peak. Historians conclude that Chichen Itza was founded sometime between 360 and 432 AD, at which time the Mayas swarmed off from tribal headquarters in Guatemala and established themselves in southern Mexico. A short distance from the temples of worship is the sacred well, where in time of drought or in the face of some public calamity, young Maya maidens clothed in heavily embroidered robes and decked with jewelry and drugged with narcotics were hurled into the waters below at sunrise to propitiate Yumchak, the god of rain. This tradition was handed down through generations of Mayas, and from earliest childhood, chosen girls were groomed and prepared for this sacrifice, having been taught to consider betrothal to Yumchak the highest honor of the gods. If at the end of the day the maiden was still alive on the surface of the pool, she was rescued and respected as a goddess for the rest of her life. But few maidens were ever that fortunate, as testify the many frail bones that have in recent years been brought to the surface by research workers. And with these bones were large quantities of jewels and golden ornaments, some of which are believed to have been cast into the pool by worshipers who attended the ceremonies. In contrast with the ruins is the modern Mayaland Lodge, offering comfortable accommodations for those who wish to study the nearby shrines of a people who lived and worked and worshiped on this very ground ages before it bore the footprints of white men. Thatch roof cottages on the hotel grounds are supposed to resemble the dwellings of the ancient Mayas, and we are impressed by their similarity with huts that we once saw in the native kraals of Africa. Incidentally, about 90% of the 500,000 or more people of Yucatan have Maya blood, and here we meet a few of them who have found interest in the art of dressmaking. This dress is known as an ipil. The Maya maidens of Yucatan are modest and most industrious, and they excel as good homemakers. Returning to the nearby shrines, we visit the so-called House of the Nuns, which, it is said, once sheltered the Maya maidens who lived like nuns. They had a mother superior, or abbess, and if any of them violated their vows of chastity, they were shot to death with arrows, though they could obtain permission to marry from the high priest. Astronomy was a favorite subject with the Maya priests, and from their studies of the stars, they evolved a calendar which was based on a regular 365-day year, with adjustments for leap year. Modern astronomers are amazed to find that the tables of eclipses, calculated by the Mayan astronomers over 1,000 years ago, are so accurate that they check with our present-day calculations, even though we are aided by the finest and most modern instruments. Because the Maya priests were able to predict certain astronomical happenings with unfailing accuracy, they held the masses in constant fear, giving them the impression that they knew the wishes of the gods. This building, known as El Caracol, and meaning the snail, was used by them as an observatory. The most outstanding shrine in all of Yucatan is the pyramid of the Mayan god Kukulkan. This side, unrestored, offers an interesting contrast with the restored side. And it is here that we conclude our impressions of the shrines of Yucatan.